Okay, this is an introduction to the new graphics messaging system in Fleet Manager. You reach it the way you would normally reach a new message. You go to your board and you click the new message button, and what you see now is the same old text message form that you're used to, but now it's in a tab, and now there's also a graphic tab. You click that and you get the graphic message canvas. This is basically more or less a normal drawing tool. It has some constraints relating to the way boards work, and it's as complicated and tricky to use as drawing tools often are, so you just have to practice a bit, get used to it. Over here on the left you see different kinds of tools you can use to draw, so I can draw an ellipse, and if I hold down the Shift key it becomes a circle, and when I let go it snaps it to the grid. So the grid that you're seeing here is exactly the pixel size that your board has, that you're talking to. And if you forgot what you were looking at, here's some information on your board: the address or the name if it had a name, the model number, and the size of the board. That might come in handy later. So anything I draw will snap to that grid. I can also have a rectangle, and if I hold down the Shift key, my rectangle becomes a square and snaps to grid. I can have a fill color if I want. So right now my stroke color is amber. I can make my stroke color blue, and I can make my fill color red, and then I can draw, let's say, a polygon. Snaps to grid. Now, for triangles and polygons we have a number of options, and if you click that little button over the main icon you get to choose which polygon you want, or in the case of a triangle, what direction the triangle goes in. And if we forgot to choose a fill color for this guy, for instance, and I want it to be filled, then I can choose my fill color here, and I can go to my fill tool and kind of pour that in. So pretty standard stuff. Let's see, I can move over to another page now. Keep things clean. I have 3 pages that I can use, and I can show you how to draw lines. The line, if I draw a funny diagonal, will come out not very pretty because that is the nature of a low resolution screen. If I draw a line and hold down the Shift key, then it makes sure it's a straight line. Or I can do one of the 8 cardinal directions while I'm holding the Shift key and snap to grid. Same thing happens with arrows, except arrows will never let you do a funny diagonal because arrows never look good that way. So arrows are limited to the cardinal directions. When I'm drawing a line or an arrow, by the way, I can also change my stroke width and, let's say, change my color. And now my arrow looks like this. Boom. I can change my fill color when I have a thick line. I can change my fill color here to 3, to blue, and fill it with 3. Now, this is getting kind of messy for a demo, so I'm going to clear my page. Here's my page tools section, and by the way, when you hover slowly over each of these icons, you will see a tooltip pop up, and after a while you will probably remember what's what. So my page tool here, I want to clear this page. I have to confirm that I want to do that, and let's go back to the demo. So I'll take an arrow. I gave it a stroke width of 4 and a fill width of 3. That's not going to look very good. That's going to be too heavy. I'll reduce that. And here's my filled in arrow. Roughly the same thing happens with any other tool that I pick. So, by the way, let's do something else now. Let's select this guy and use the delete button to kill it, to clean up my canvas. I have occasional message here showing up telling me what I just did. Sometimes an error message will pop up there. That's mostly what it's good for. And let's do a square that has an interesting width and a fill color. If I decided I didn't want to fill that color, by the way, I can choose a fill color of black and go back to my fill tool, and there you go. It's an empty shape now. So you can refill or unfill anything that you draw if you forgot to do it in the first place. What else can we do here? We can move a shape around. Here's my move tool. I can move it there. We can copy a shape. If I select it, I can put it into my clipboard essentially, and then I can move it to here and copy it out of the clipboard, and there it is. So now I have the same guy twice, and I can move it around again if I wanted it to be somewhere else. You can imagine doing that with arrows, copying them and moving them a bit, and then you have a moving arrow thing when the pages change. I can resize this guy that way. I can take, well, let's say I'm in a move mode. I go into move mode and I move this guy up a bit and I move this guy down a bit. Gotta click it into place. And you see that the objects move independently, but if I wanted them to kind of pretend they're one object, I can group them together. So the way I do that is I select all the objects that I want to group. One guy selected, that blinking bold thing means it's selected. And I'll select this guy, now I've got two guys selected, and I have here my group shapes tool. I do that, I get the confirmation that the group was created from the two items, and what happens now is they move in unison. They're a single shape. And I can also ungroup them just by doing my ungroup button and then clicking the group, confirming the ungroup, and now again I move them independently. Groups can be handy if you have lots of small shapes that you want to use to build one large shape out of. A good example of that would be, let's clear the page. A good example of groups is available in the reusable shape library, which is what this star is. I have pre-created a bunch of shapes, and you can create your own as well. And I can scroll through them, and I can see that here this shape is called a sample group. And when I select that, I can insert my shape into my board, and you can see clearly here how this was all created out of lots of small polygons, but they're all moving in unison, and that is really the purpose of grouping things, is to do complex shapes like this. So let's go back to this shape library thing. When I click this and I have nothing selected, basically it comes up with a list of shapes I already have, and when I pick a shape, maybe this one, I can insert it into my current page, which I just did, or I can remove it from the library if I don't like it anymore. To create my own shape, let's say I modify this guy a bit. Let's say I want to put this guy in a square border. And now I'm going to cause it to be a single group again, so I'm going to select that guy. Selecting that guy hit the other guy behind him, so let me first do this and move him back. That just allowed me to move the square back behind these people icons, and what that does is it let me select also the people icon here. Now everybody is selected. So that was a bit complicated what happened there. Basically I put the square on top of the people icon, so I couldn't select the people icon. I moved the square behind the people icon, now the people icon is on top of the square, I can select them too. Now everything is selected, and now I can make a group out of them. Didn't really have to do that, but it's convenient now because now I move them together as a single shape, and now I want to add this new shape to the library. So I'll select the shape, and now when I hit the library, icon, I have this button available to me, Add Selection to Library, and I have to give it a name here. I'm going to call it Bordered Complex Shape. That's good enough for now. Takes a couple of seconds. It confirms that the shape was added to the library. And if I go back in here, sure enough, I can see it here. Right now it's showing up at the bottom, but if I ever reload the page and go back into this message board, it will show up in alphabetical order. So new shapes show up at the bottom when you first create them, but eventually when you go back, everything is alphabetized. And now I have basically two similar shapes in my library, and that's also how you edit a shape, basically. Is I could have given it the same name as I gave it up here. And then I'd have two shapes with the same name, but they'd be slightly different. And then I would select the old one and remove it from the library. So to change a shape, really what you're doing is you're modifying it slightly by bringing it in, editing it, resaving it, and then removing the old one. The shapes that are in my library are available to every other user in my customer base. So if I'm customer Wonko right now, all other users in customer Wonko will see that. If I'm customer Joe's Rental Services, then all users in Joe's Rental Services will see the same shape library for their boards. What else can we do here? I think we saw the moving back and forth. That's a little easier to see maybe again if I put a circle up here, if I put a filled circle over here, and you can see how it overlays my other shape. I'm going to select the circle now and move it back. And now you can see that the other shape is overlaying it, and now I'll stop my selection. And it's a little more clear now, even with the blinking, that the circle is clearly behind my complex shape. One more tool we haven't seen here is this duplicate shape group, and I'll go over to a clean canvas to show you that one. Long story short, it really just does a special case of cut and paste. I have my shape, I go into my duplicate tool, I click the shape, I get two of them, and it automatically moves me over to my move tool, because presumably, having done that, I probably want to do something like this now, move it away. So I could have done the same thing with copy and paste, but for the special case of duplicating two shapes close to each other and reusing them right there, we have that button. What other tools have we not looked at? A couple of tools over here. Let me clear this page and show you the text tool. I just hit the A over there. I have a few fonts available to me. I'll pick the small one. I'll pick my text color to be a little easier to see on a demo. And there's my text. So when I'm done typing, I press enter, and it basically finishes that line of text. And the last tool we have is this import image tool. So when I click this guy, it opens my Finder to find images to pull in. I'm going to take one of my official test images, and the image is a no drinking sign, and I have a crop image selection box here. I'm just going to draw a new one around where I really want it to be, so that's just sort of a sample to guide you into what you do next. And I draw my crop image square around the piece of the image that I want. And then I hit the crop image button. I can also cancel out of here if I change my mind. And here it gets pulled in and slowly fades into the pixel snapped image version of it. Let me remove that text from behind. And now I just have my image. Now, when you're importing a high-resolution image into a low-resolution screen, which is what the message board is, you're bound to have a few pixels that aren't quite what you want them to be. And for that, we have this Magic Wand Touch-Up tool. And when I select that, and when I hover over a pixel that is adjacent or in the shape, I get to change it. So let's say I didn't like as much white over here on this pixel, so I'll choose my black color here. And if I get right into that pixel, it goes black when I click it. And so I can touch up my image. I can actually use touch up on any image, on any shape that I draw, but it's probably most useful for importing JPEGs and PNGs and whatever else you might import. And then when I'm done with that, I can just get out of that tool. I leave it there, it doesn't matter. So I think we've covered importing images, all the basic shapes and polygons, all our design tools. I might not have been very clear about this fact here, that when I select something, I might also want to unselect it, which is this tool here, and just stop my selection. A couple more things you can do. With color boards and certain color combinations, you might want to change the brightness, the relative brightness of various colors. Maybe the white is too bright or the blue is too bright. So you can go in here, into this light bulb guy, and choose the intensity of each of the colors. They're all at maximum intensity right now, but if I found my blue to be too intense, I would click over here, and my blue would get a bit darker, and then I can just close this. And these color intensity selections apply to all the samples of that color on all pages of this message. It's for the whole message. If I do a white, you can see it happening more clearly here on the canvas. And I can change my red till it's almost invisible. And I'll change my blue back to full intensity and close this out. Another thing we can do is change the timing of how long each page shows up when they're looping through. So I'll draw something else here. Draw a triangle. And I'll go to each page. Now you'll notice, by the way, that this border shows up on the page which is currently my active page for the next thing I do, and that's generally speaking the page which is mostly in view in this short, small box. And I'll go to my page timing button here, and I can see that this page is going to be on for 1 second and off for 1 second. So just to make things a bit quicker, I can make that off for less time, and then I'll go to my, whoops, I want to tab out of that to make sure it takes. And then here, make that guy show up for, let's say, half a second, off, tab out to make sure it takes. And maybe this guy's off 0 seconds. And now I can go to my play button and play the sequence. This would probably look a lot better if I had lined up a bunch of arrows that seem to grow or something like that, but you get the idea. Basically, I'm looping through all the pages in my message to see what it looks like in real life. And then I can stop this and close out that tool. Those are all the tools you have. Oh, I forgot to mention undo and redo pretty much do what you expect them to do. Okay, let's just clean up a bit. The easiest way to do that is to just reload this page. There we go. See what else we need to cover. Probably should cover actually submitting a message. So here we go. Let's do a simple fill square. Make it a little more interesting. And maybe put some text inside it. That might be a little hard to see on the highway. Move it there. And as usual, you are able to determine what message number this goes to and whether you're defining and activating or just defining. You can turn on your beacons if you have them. And let's just submit this guy and see what happens. And here's my preview. And I can cancel out if I don't like it, or I can go ahead and submit that. And here we go, message activation successful, and that's what it looks like. One more thing we can do with graphic messages once they're in the system, I can see them in my Stored Messages tab under Changeable Message. I can go down to C99. There it is. Now I have an edit link over here. By the way, notice there used to be a Activate Selected button over here somewhere, and I took that away, and I just put an Activate link here by the message. And the reason for that is because now we also have an edit link. So there's a couple of different things you can do with each message, and it seems easier to me, I think, to just have the links over here and do exactly what you need to do where you need to do it. So I could activate this message, no need to, it's already active. I could activate any other message as usual. And because this is a graphic message created by Fleet Manager, I can also edit it. And I hit the edit button, or link rather in this case. It takes a couple of seconds to load, and here it is. And I can do whatever I want to it now. I can add pages. This is basically like a brand new message. And it comes up with what I had before, and it knows the message number it was. But if I want now, this is a nice way to copy messages. I can just say, okay, put this guy in message 98, define it only, and change the word maybe to goodbye, or I don't know, add another little circle here. And if I submit that and define it only, it'll just do pretty much what you expect it to do. So let's do that. Here's my little circle. You can see that we're still showing message 99. It's still what it was before. Message definition successful. Normally it says message activation if I had clicked the activate button. And I go back to my stored messages, and I should see C98 looking a heck of a lot like C99, only with that extra circle. And you can barely see it, but there it is, and I can edit that again. What else can we do with these messages? That's probably about it. I think I've touched all the buttons. The end.